Hey everyone, what's up? Manny from Vegan Rock Climbing here. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode I want to touch on a topic which was highly suggested by you guys. Your wish is my command. Let's talk about injury. First of all, I want to say that this is quite a wide range topic. If you're climbing for a longer time already, then you may have noticed that as climbers we not only can be injured in fingers, but also in elbows, shoulders, neck, and also lower body parts like hips or knees. Yes, we are pushing almost all of our body parts to their limit, which results in a wide spectrum of different injuries and an even greater diversity of how people treat those injuries. However, I believe that finger injuries are the most frequent ones for obvious reasons, and in this episode I want to take a closer look at what we can do to prevent finger injuries in the first place. I want to do some follow-up videos on how to treat already existing finger injuries and on other body parts as well, so if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Secondly, I want to be clear about the fact that I'm not a specialist. Although I'm in white, I'm not a doctor, nor a physician, nor a physiotherapist whatsoever. But I have roughly 9 years experience with the sport now, and as you can imagine, I've also had several injuries during that period. So what you're going to hear, the advice you're going to hear, is just based on that experience. It is not based on this or that study or what expert XY said or wrote. If you're getting injured, consider visiting a doctor and, even more importantly, use common sense. Alright, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into it. Prevention is your first line of defense when it comes to avoiding injury in the first place, so it makes sense if we are perfectly aware of the measures that we can take in order to optimize it. My first, pretty simple, but I believe most powerful advice is never full crimp indoors. If you're not familiar with different grip types, I'd suggest you to check out my video about gripping technique here. I have to admit, I don't know exactly how it works. It could have something to do with the shape of indoor holds, with the friction of indoor holds, with the sheer number of moves and time spent on indoor walls, or with the simple fact that you're doing less full crimps if you're not crimping indoors, or a combination of these. However, it works, that's for sure. Since I've started to pay a little attention to it roughly 1 year ago, I never had any problems with pulleys or tendons or similar stuff, although I have the feeling that I did a lot of quite hard training and maybe I even got a little stronger during that period. Indoor holds are different, and the proof for that is that we develop a completely different skin once we climb only outdoors for a longer period of time, regardless whether it's bouldering or rope climbing. And don't get me wrong here, if you encounter a super tiny, super sharp crimp outdoors, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention there as well. As always, use common sense. But in general, I've experienced that outdoor crimps are much more tolerant to pulleys, tendons, joints and stuff than indoor crimps. That's the bottom line. The second most powerful tip that I want to give you here is pay attention when it comes to dynamic forces. This can mean a dynamic move on a small edge, for example, or training on one of the biggest injury generators, the campus board. If you're grabbing a hold in a dynamic fashion, try to use the most open grip type available and get more aggressive afterwards if you need to. Another tip would be take care if you've already climbed for a longer duration. This applies to both very long sessions with lots of moves, like for example power endurance training, and lots of separate sessions with insufficient rest periods in between. I think the main reason why this behavior causes injury very often is that we simply get tired. And if we're tired, we are performing climbing moves more uncontrolled. This leads to less force in our muscles and more force in our structures like pulleys, joints and tendons. And also a high number of impacts adds up to a certain extent. Very few very hard moves cause the same stress in those structures as more slightly softer moves, if that makes sense. And my final tip is pay attention if you have the impression that you got stronger. Now this is a little bit of a paradox one, because when we have the feeling we're super light on the wall, we can perform moves which we could never do before. This goes hand in hand with the notion that fingers and their inner structures became more resistant against these new forces as well, whereas in fact only our muscles got stronger. Be aware that inner structures like tendons, pulleys and cartilage take much more time to adapt to a new stimulus and new level of climbing than our muscles. It literally can take years, so be careful if you have the impression that it got stronger, just give your body some time to adapt. So to sum this up, my top tips for finger injury prevention: never crimp indoors, pay attention with dynamic moves on small holds, take care if you've climbed already for a longer duration without sufficient rest periods, and finally, be especially aware of the first 3 tips if you have the impression that you just got stronger. It is very easy to overload the body if you just pushed your limits a little bit further. And that's already it for this episode, my friends. This was the first video of a whole series about climbing related injuries. Next time we're going to take a look at treatment for optimal healing of already acquired finger injuries, when all the wisdom that I've just presented you so foresighfully was ignored, so to say. And as always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you've got something from this video. And for this whole series, I want to especially encourage you to post your stories and experiences in the comments down below, because I'm sure other people, including myself, would love to learn from them as well. Alright guys, take care of your body and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!